to talk to us about what it is like experiencing this tiger business, this extraordinary success story of Huboo, is co-founder Paul Dodd. Paul. Welcome. Glad you got a glass of wine as well.
Thanks.
If you want a perch, do. And if you fancy using that, if that's okay, I'll just speak loudly. Let's start with the personal. You had a highly successful 21-year career at Procter & Gamble, and at P&G you rose the height of the global physical distribution manager. So why leave that? And was there a catalyst?
Yeah, I always wanted to set up my own business. That was at the heart. But yeah, a lot of people at the time said, "Yeah, why is he leaving that?" Just
Who's laughing now, eh?
Yeah, who's laughing now? Yeah.
But was there a moment in time, a trigger point, or I don't want to load the question too much, but I still will. A realization that what you wish to do, you perhaps couldn't achieve within P&G.
Yeah, so my last job in P&G was going around the world looking at lots of e-commerce fulfillment centres, or like all the Chinese e-commerce companies, like in Brazil, North America, and I just thought this whole thing could be done differently. And there's too much of an oil tanker. For P&G, we weren't those companies anyway. They're our sort of clients. So it's a different way of doing this.
It's inherently difficult for a larger scale business with a whole load of different forms of legacy in terms of senior employees, legacy in terms of brand, of culture, of technology, to reinvent itself. And again, slight words in your mouth, but you didn't perhaps feel that opportunity could be achieved within a larger scale oil tanker type of business.
Yeah, I think for a lot of these sort of legacy companies, it'll be too late to change. Even now, like some of our so we're talking to the likes of Unilever and Nestle now, they have to sort of spawn up smaller companies within the bigger company in order to take on sort of this new world of e-commerce.
Yeah, and smaller companies on the whole could be more agile. And one of the things that we'll perhaps come on to later is that as you build scale from this small base, very small base, we'll talk about that in a sec, how you avoid becoming that oil tanker that you turn into, that which you perhaps walked away from. Come back to the very beginning. How, when, and why, perhaps where as well, whilst we're at it, did Huboo start?
Yeah, so it started in my garage, like all.
Oh, come on! He's making it up. A garage-based tech business? Yeah. Surely not.
Yeah, like all the great
tick.
Yeah, it says in my garage. So our very first fulfillment centre was my garage.
How big is a garage?
It's quite a small garage.
Is it 2 cars, 4 cars?
No, one single car garage in Bath.
What were you shipping from there?
I had chocolates and toys. Yeah. And they scaled. That was to test out the whole model, and it started annoying the post office, taking down the bags to the post office.
Well, probably the neighbours as well.
And then the neighbours, when these big trucks come down, like this little road in Bath, like delivering like big boxes of toys. And that was just a test. That was all to test out this new way of doing fulfillment.
Where was this little road in Bath? What part?
It was in Whitcomb.
Right.
Yeah.
That's not that I'm nosy, but I just thought I'd ask anyway.
Yeah.
So how did you, from scratch, how did you get your first client, and who were they?
Yeah. So I got the whole sort of model working in the garage. Tested out of our own main sort of e-commerce businesses, just to test out the whole logistics behind it.
Yeah.
Opened up one in the self-storage unit in Bath.
Yeah.
So that's it was like a 500 square foot space, and that's when Martin, my business partner, came involved. So I handled all sorts of tech and logistics, and he started selling. And within a day, we had our first boxes arriving. With such a gap in the market, scaled up to 80 clients within 9 months.
How did you two get together? How did you meet? Or
so it was a very cold day.
Is this a long story? You got a cold day, and what happened? You're on this benighted place or something.
Yeah, so
and you
at the top of the university, university football pitch.
Right.
Watching our oldest kids play football. They lasted about 8 weeks because they didn't like football before. We we both had the idea of sort of getting them into some sort of sport.
Right.
It lasted about 8 weeks. So then I sort of became friends with Martin, and he was helped me with the business.
So if you were to put together a catalyst, imagine this as a business case. So we're going to start in a garage. We're going to be selling chocolates. We're going to meet on whilst kids are playing football. That is not the obvious basis of this extraordinary company, but it just shows, as much as anything else, that happenstance and physical, not that way physical, but physical relationships are incredibly important, the human interaction on the side of a football pitch. One advantage being you had some time, I guess. Once they're running around, you can have a proper chat.
Yeah.
And so what were your two roles? So you were coming from a more technical background.
No, so Martin actually came from a technical background.
Sorry.
And then I came from sort of more of a business logistics sort of background. So that logically obviously fed into me doing all the initial coding for Huboo and second one for the Martin doing sales.
And again, if you put that as a strategy, maybe. Just by the by, of that original coding, does any of it survive lurking somewhere in a dark corner of your...
Yeah, it does. It does, yeah.
Go on.
Yeah, so I thought it'd be quite straightforward. I'd code it all. It's actually was quite complicated.
Really? Who knew?
Yeah. A lot of my code's still lurking there. A lot of it was written over like a glass of wine. So in the company now they sort of call it wine code, and they think I deliberately did it poorly just to spite them there, like when they're coming into sort of trying to fix it as a joke. But,
wine code.
I just didn't know how to code. Yeah.
I mean, again, keep going with the happenstances. So someone who doesn't know how to code, the code first of all did power the business, but still lurks within that business.
Yeah, it runs all the business to this day. Yeah, right at the centre of it. I think a big part of it tonight actually they're cutting over to a new version of it.
Well, literally tonight.
Yeah, tonight.
I was about to make some cheap jive that if you've raised £100 million, don't you think it's about time to change some of the code with the system?
Yeah.
But you're ahead of the game. Who would have thought it?
Yeah.
Tell us about some of the biggest surprises and maybe some of those sort of early win moments. Was there sort of a not quite a tipping point, but a point at which you thought, bloody hell, if we can get an order like that from that company in those early days?
Yeah. So right in the early days, we had this. That first box that came in, that someone just trusted us to do, hold their stock and fulfill it for them, sending it into a self-storage unit in Bath.
Yeah.
So that was quite, that was like eye-opening. There is a gap in the market. Those first 80 clients, but in that first nine months, PayPal, it's a brand new way of doing fulfillment that we can actually service. It's category agnostic and we can service small to medium enterprises as well as the big companies. And PayPal have been struggling for ages to get a partner in the UK that could handle small to medium enterprises. So they actually came down to visit us in the self-storage unit, like basically shocked, like shaking. But the guy there, we sort of built a relationship with. He sort of trusted us, and we become PayPal's preferred film provider in the UK.
Wind back slightly from that. So how did they get to hear of you? Because with respect, you're a minnow at that point, and yet they got to hear of you, rated you enough to spend that time to then invest not money, but the connection. How? Why?
Yeah, I think they just found us on page 3 of Google, like a lot of our because there's no competition, especially at that time, for doing like what we did. Yeah.
Wow. So we all post-rationalise, particularly when companies had ups and downs, and I think you've had hardly any downs at all. You've been all ups.
Downs every day.
There's downs every day. All right, tell us about some of the downs then. Whilst we're on that.
Well, it's like whack-a-mole. So every day there's a problem pops up, and it's like bang, problem pops up, bang, problem, bang. Yeah.
And try to remember whack-on in detail, but you never quite get to the end of it.
No, it just keeps going. Just the moles get bigger and bigger and bigger. Bang, bang.
Go on, let it out. Come on, keep going. But I guess go off on a tangent. But the problems that occur or challenges euphemistically occur in businesses, it's really a question of scale, but they're not fundamental issues in a way that a problem when you're a nascent business can be really complex.
the problems now is scale type problems.
Yeah. Okay, you're right. That was a dumb question. So I want to give you a quote. You did very well to say what are you on about? I want to give you moving on. I want to give you a quote and see if this sort of concurs with how you see the world. I'm trying to get a sense of your stretch. This is the former US chief data scientist DJ Patil. Dream in years, plan in months, evaluate in weeks, ship daily. Does that sort of mantra, that sort of multiple time horizons, is that how conceptually you see the business? Don't say no, please.
It's exactly that.
Is it?
Yeah, you put words into my mouth.
Is it? What? No.
That is yeah.
It's a great quote, isn't it?
Yeah. So we want to become a multi-billion-pound company. We can get on a bit later where we want to go. But yeah, we want to become a multi-billion-pound company, and it breaks up into years, months, and then ultimately it's what you do on the day that makes that count.
Or even overnight, if they're changing the fundamental code of the company. Yeah. Now, for those who have experienced, and several in the room who are experiencing it right now, and you absolutely are experiencing rapid growth, it's wonderful on virtually every single metric, but it does have its challenges in terms of managing. Let's come on to that. What strategy? You haven't had a drink. I'll waffle for a bit whilst you're drinking. How do you anticipate structures of management which keep needing to change when some managers' capability to develop won't be as fast as the growth that the company needs?
Yes, I mean we say to people like when they join especially leadership roles, it's like being in a pyramid, and they're at the top of their pyramid, and that pyramid will just grow and grow. So even if they're not right at the top, their bit of it still can grow and grow. So we get big, so anyone that starts, it's got a big opportunity to grow, even if they don't end up right at the top.
And how is it for you personally? You weren't just hands on it. You were the business back in those first few weeks, months, whatever. Is it the case that you're making fewer decisions but bigger, or are you're at the back of the territory of just everything?
Yeah, it's everything. So there are bigger decisions, but there's still a lot of decisions. Yeah, and still granular, smaller level decisions as well.
And how do you? Again, this is it's personal as a management point. It's to do with scale of a business. Many entrepreneurs have an intuitive feel for their business, their service, their product, their people, whatever, and their decision-making process is born of that. But as scale builds, you're inevitably more distant from the activity. How have you found that? Have you found that to be an issue at all?
So we actually talked to one of the Google, not the founders, but the CFO that worked with the founders, a guy called Patrick Pichette, and he's given us this advice in the early days of Google when they scaled up. It was around this, they did like a town hall every week. They did it when I think they scaled from 10,000 to 20,000 people and had this town hall every week. They put out a survey, and anyone in the whole Google could have upvote any questions to the top, and then the management answered those questions from the top down in terms of the most popular. You even said it was like an issue with the local canteen, or the big fundamental HR issue. They just went through that. So myself and Martin put that in place immediately. Actually, at the time, about 2 years ago, and we just keep it going now every 2 weeks. Anyone in the company across any country can ask any question, and we just answer them one by one, and that keeps us in touch with what's going on all levels of the company.
And is that a sort of a live town hall, will be through Teams or whatever, or is it a written?
It's live, yeah. Yeah. So we broadcast across all our sites. When we go to a different site, each town hall every 2 weeks, and the people in that site is the live audience in front of them.
Plus stream to everyone else.
Stream to everyone else, and anyone in the company can ask the questions.
And looking at Huboo from the outside, there are. These are all positive points, but it might sound a bit negative. There are a number of challenges, I would have thought, of how you've essentially, by the nature of your multi-activity company, and I'm going to make the differentiation for the sake of the argument, techs and more warehouse, and clearly there's a read across, but essentially there's a form of two tribes. How do you How do you recognise that? How do you reward and maintain ambition and motivation when career trajectories and timeline horizons are different inherently?
Yeah, I don't think they need to be different inherently. So we made a decision quite early on to have one culture and one company. So for example, in the town hall, we just have one town hall across the company. A lot of our best head office staff now actually come from started as hub managers in the warehouses. So we advertise almost all jobs internally. But we're really happy to promote people if they've got the right skills and capability.
I noticed that in the last 12 months you've taken on exactly 499 people. I thought, well, just make it up. Call it 500. I mean, really, but regardless of that point, 499 people, just the sheer process. I mean, some of those I know are acquisition based, I'd guess.
No, it's all...
That's all organic?
All organic, yeah. So we had 2 people 4 years ago. Now we've got over 850 people across 5 countries.
Good.
It was not stressful at all.
Okay, talk us through the recruitment process and how that has evolved. If you give, I don't know, a sort of a normative or a made up sort of role or whatever. How do you seek the people? How do you filter the people? And how do you decide?
Yes, so actually one of let's say first 50 employees, we decided to have an internal recruitment person, and he it was a great individual that one person had just within like weeks recruited some great people for us, and that's evolved now into teams of people across multiple countries that recruit with a talent acquisition software and like multiple partners that feed into that and the whole process of recruitment. And then after we get people through the door, we have a learning development team that then upskill people so they can do the jobs. So it's sort of night and day versus when it started. When it's like, we might need a finance manager. I know someone that used to do that.
Yeah. And to give some sense of time scale on a mid-tier job, what sort of time between posting it or seeking responses and employing would you typically take? Is that too specific? Is that too dull?
It depends on what material. But I think, so because we're rapidly scaling, we need people within weeks or months versus 6 months or 12, 9 months. So I think the longest role that we've waited around for has been 6 months, but most have been between 1 and 3 months for sort of leadership type roles.
But I guess it's about your decision making process, and if that time has actually shortened because of the quality of process that you now have, or not.
It's probably it's probably longer because there's a process.
Oh, right.
So it used to be come in, meet us, great, have a job. And now there's like interviews and tests and
So interviews and tests and there's Google itself has an extraordinary process of recruiting. I'm sure you're all over that, being advised on that very much. Let's come on to growth of the business in this respect. You've recently acquired Volcanic in Paris for can't be right, 225 million.
No, that is probably a different company, a different acquisition.
Yeah, exactly.
So we have actually just bought a warehouse in France.
Right, so not that at all.
It wasn't a company, it wasn't 225.
As I looked at it, I thought that should become true. Okay, in addition to the activities you have, Netherlands, Spain, Germany, first of all, how much of your future growth is going to be through that sort of entry into new countries as opposed to scaling up what you already have?
Yeah, so we've got 3 sort of bits of growth. So one is in the UK, we're going after more larger companies. Like we've recently done a deal with a large FMCG, and we've talked to quite a few other very, very large companies in the UK, as well as still servicing all the small companies. Geographic growth, so we're in France, Germany, Spain, Netherlands. Interesting thing about Europe is with the pandemic, the e-commerce market's really matured over the last few years, so they're real sort of target markets where you get a lot of growth now. And the third area of growth is like getting more into the e-commerce ecosystem, so doing a lot more sort of software services.
what potentially with the option to white label that to other companies? Is that
So we're talking to a lot of different companies about really expanding what we're doing. Yeah. So not really white labeling, but putting our tech into other companies,
right.
or expanding our tech to also handle more of the e-commerce ecosystem.
And talking of the blessed pandemic, which we have to talk about at some point, it's clearly accelerated a trend which has been in place for some time of growth of e-commerce. But in very recent times, as at least some have gone back to normal or in real life trading, e-commerce has fallen off quite sharply. Is that a sort of a necessary correction, but it's still the underlying trend is upwards? How do you regard it?
Yeah, so I think for the UK, it's been sort of 10% more or less growth. Then there's a big blip with the coronavirus where you can go to physical shops, you had to buy it off the internet. Then the physical shops are opened, that blip has gone back down. But the underlying is still, the growth is there. And like I said, a lot of Europe has learned to sort of shop online and more comfortable with that now. So it's like opened up that market.
And some major European countries are less e-commerce savvy than the UK, which itself gives a big growth option. Germany, for example, on a per capita basis, e-commerce is still lagging.
Yeah, so UK's leading, and then all the rest of the countries lag, and then that's growth opportunity even just to catch up the UK, let alone go forward.
Of actual or true organic growth.
Yeah. Also, like the market's huge, so I think it's like 200 billion market we could go after. So we've got such a small piece of it. The growth is sort of unlimited for us.
Having mentioned the pandemic, I'll now mention Brexit with a slightly heavy heart. Has that impacted your business? So 2017, that was after the vote, but before any form of enactment of Brexit. Has that created any barrier or limitation to you?
Not really, because we've got warehouses in Europe now.
Fulfilling directly.
Yeah, fulfilling directly. During the actual process of Brexit, I mean, it's just every few months something happens. So I think France shut its borders because of Brexit. No, France shut its borders because of the pandemic, and then shut its borders because of Brexit. Or vice. It just all happened within months, and because we have everything from the warehouses, the people, the tech, we could respond a lot faster than a lot of our competition. So we think overall, we sort of beat the competition on that.
Yeah. You've been through various funding rounds, 5 so far. Talk us through that process, and having, I would imagine, not having previously done it, how you approached that, what it was like managerially, how you made your potential case to VCs, and who was that first VC or first investor who came in?
Yeah, so the first investor was a VC called Episode 1, based in London. It was set up by someone called Simon Murdoch, who sold his first company to Amazon and ran Amazon in Europe. And then he went on to become a VC. Our contact in there was this VC called Damien Lane. He came down to visit us, and within 3 weeks, as a result of him going into his IC, like investment committee, and just saying, "You've got to invest in this company," or I'm just going to invest myself. Because Simon Murdoch, given he ran Amazon, knew the complexities involved of doing what we're trying to do. But Damien Lane sort of forced it through, and within 3 weeks made a decision, and we got the first investment. It was £1 million. Our business plan that was meant to last about a year to 18 months, and we spent about 3 months.
And £1 million for these are all approximate numbers. £1 million for 20%, valuing a business at 5 or so. For a business then turning what sales would you have had roughly?
I think it was about a
modest number.
Yeah, a very modest number.
A very modest number.
Yeah.
And then the most
the main thing was the growth.
Yeah.
So the clients pouring through the door, investment, and the reason why we spent £1 million in like 3 months is because of the growth. We've done that ever since. We just want to grow every pound that comes in. We focus it just on growth.
It's fuel.
It's fuel, and that's what the VCs wanted to see, and so they followed on immediately after 3 months for more investment.
Has it? Other than being the essential and extraordinary enabler of growth, that fuel, that rocket fuel, has it changed the way you run the business? Are the VCs, bar the the monthly reports, weekly reports, whatever, are they at all influencing or involved with decision making?
So there's consents, which means if we're to buy a new company or we're to suddenly like launch in like America, then we need to get consent. But by and large, the very first investment, that first minute, we were quite surprised that we didn't actually know how it worked, and they just put the £1 million into our bank account.
Did they tell you? Did they tell you that, by the way, you'll get it tomorrow, or did it? Shit, it's there.
Yeah, oh, that's how it works. And then you can pretty much, it's pretty much spend it how it is, and you have your board meeting then where you prepare, the statistics, so they can keep an eye on it. But they want to leave it to you because ultimately, the executives or the entrepreneurs are in the best position to grow the business.
That's what they're buying into.
Yeah.
If you had more of this wondrous fuel, could you go faster and further?
Yeah. So the idea is next year, like you said before, we want to get to a large investment round, and that would be to expand both the IT into the e-commerce infrastructure, but also potentially go to the US.
We'll come on to the US because it touches into I guess the sort of ultimate destiny, at least potentially, of the business. Just one last point, and I'll take some questions. What advice would you have for entrepreneurs? We began a conversation earlier this evening, just prior to this, to entrepreneurs considering funding rounds, about how you approached it, lessons learned, equity given, valuations, role of advisors. We'll come on to.
Yeah, so we had a conversation with the entrepreneur earlier, and it was around how much equity sort of gets given away. It feels like you're giving away a bit of your business, but the point is that the business at the same type of investment gets disproportionately larger to the equity that you're giving away. So the pie keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger. You get a smaller and smaller slice of the pie, but that slice of the pie, if it started as a pie, then it ends up as like a giant Domino's pizza or something.
Whatever measurement, or
whatever metaphor.
Yeah, enormous pie. Enormous pie. So hold that thought. Let's have some questions or thoughts, please, and perhaps do say your name and your company or organisation name as well. Anyone want some questions about this quite extraordinary business? Yes, Brian.
One of my favourite anecdotes is one that Reid Hoffman shares, which is that the first 100 employees are your cultural co-founders. So I'm interested to know what proportion of your cultural co-founders are still in the business, and whether or not you found that to be true. Have the first 100 people influenced the growth of the business?
Yeah, I mean, right. I think even now, every single employee we employ we do such a huge job on the recruitment, making sure the culture fits right to us. But yeah, invariably, those initial employees, that's what we try to capture and codify in our recruitment since then. So if there's any startups that do cloning, then that would have been useful. But ultimately, we just sort of put it into our recruitment process.
And related point, did they presumably they shared and they actually directly experienced that sort of founding zeal? Because with a smaller company, you were closer to the founders and its spirit, I guess. Yeah.
And every single employee right to now gets we give shares to some of those early employees, even if they were if they're right at the heart of it and doing the picking and packing. When we eventually exit, then they'll be able to buy a house or something.
Great stuff. Another question or two. Oh, you're also bashful. Yes, please.
Michael Legg from Brisbane. How are you going to conserve the culture if you're going to grow into Europe? Looking at very, very different working environments, cultural setups. How are you going to keep that kind of core Huboo kind of Bristolian culture or Bristolian? How's it going to work in Spain?
Yeah, so it's an interesting question. We didn't actually know whether it would work. But it seems to do so far. So we went there to visit them a few weeks ago, and again, because we focused on the recruitment, we got very, very similar feedback from the employees there than what we're getting from the UK. In fact, there, it's even more unusual sort of culture thing.
Are you taking active steps?
Yeah, there's active steps. Yeah, in terms of recruitment culture, we do like an EMPS survey. They're part of the town hall. They have local. So there's a huge amount of effort goes into culture, and so far it seems to be paying dividends. But we don't underestimate it at all. I think there could be it could be one of those whack-a-moles.
I'm sure that's not quite the management style. That's a metaphor, ladies and gentlemen. Because, no, it isn't. It's true. Yeah, Gary. Yeah, you want to say? Yeah, sorry.
Gary Fisher from Making Salt. If you're expanding at such a quick rate, did you find you put processes and systems around your people as you grew, or put processes and systems in place for you? And how did you attract better staff to a smaller SME as you were?
Yeah, so generally we wait until it's too late to put in the processes and systems. And there's problems that evolve, and we think, okay, we need a process or a system the challenge then is like too much bureaucracy or too many like line points. So we've got this like minimum viable bureaucracy point where we're just trying to put in the minimum amount of bureaucracy to make it scale. But there's exactly the sort of challenge that we're getting right now, especially when we recruit like senior people in that have been used to working in more bureaucratic environments. So that's today's mole that we're trying to whack.
I think we've all got the whack-a-mole thing, so it's quite interesting. Let's come on not on to whack-a-mole. Sounds a bit partridgey in this. Let's come on to David. We've got two here. Yeah. Sorry, but yeah. So in case that didn't travel to us about, the question is, given the scale of growth, is the intention or expectation to go public, or just keep rising?
Yeah, or go with the flow. Yeah. So the intention is to go public in a few years. So we'll go to the States, expand, continue to grow, prove out the profitability of the company across Europe and US, and then look go public. But we do go with the flow. So if the plans might change, and then a couple of years time it might turn out Asia's a better market, and there may be like there might be a better exit than going public. But right now the plan is to go public in a few years.
And is the going public, is that to enable the funders to get value, or is it to get more funding in to generate further value?
Yeah, I think it's both. Yes.
Yeah, it's a dumb question. You're right, Dave.
Oh, hi, Dave Kelly from Storm.
Hi.
Do you recognise any changes in yourself as a person over the last period? Is there anything you can reflect on and say, given the kind of meteoric growth, you physically changed, or you've seen real changes in your day-to-day life at a personal level rather than the business level?
He's quickly thinking, how honest can I be about this? How detailed?
Do you drink more?
Oh, or do you drink better?
Yeah, better. Yeah, I just changed now. I just always wear black now, so you can see in the morning. Whereas I used to have different coloured clothes. I meet a lot more, different people like yourself. Go to a lot more award ceremonies. Speak at more events like this. Yeah, no, I think at the heart I'm the same. We've got the same sort of purpose in life, but inevitably you sort of your lifestyle changes a bit.
I mean, when you say the same purpose in life, give us a little bit more about that. Why do you do what you do? I mean, looking from the outside, I'm sure there'll be people here, people think, well, bloody hell, you've got this extraordinarily fast-growing business that's going to exit subsequently. You're one of the founders. You're going to win out commercially. It must be a factor, but what else? What are your sense of purpose in a business?
Yes, I mean, we have a bit of a joke about between myself and Martin. So Martin wants to create a multi-billion-pound company. I want to take down Amazon.
Okay, that's the very definition of a big hairy goal. I think it's an audacious goal.
Just passionate about creating better jobs. I'm personally passionate about creating better jobs for people, especially after I looked around so much of like the logistics industry in my previous jobs. So I just thought this whole thing can be done better. Give a lot more purpose to people in the warehouses, picking and packing our goods.
Well, Dan.
Hello. Sorry, I'm Dan Fallon. I run a consultancy thing called Fresh Ventures. I'm quite interested in this. I've been sitting here trying to understand slightly what it is that's special about what you do. And I've heard little hints of it, of Bristolian culture and better bits for the people in the warehouses. And somehow or other, this whole thing's given you some sort of superpower within the logistics business or distribution business that allowed you to beat and grow from competition. Can you talk a little bit more about how you know, because it's famously a minimum wage grim business, in my perception from the outside. So how is it that you think, and this may sound stupid, that by sort of paying people more and treating them better, that's good? Whereas everyone else doesn't seem to want to do that.
Yeah, it's a different job in our warehouses. So if you walk into one of the warehouses, you'll see it split up into these sort of micro warehouses, and then each one of these is a lot more like a small retail store. So the people in it are hub managers. They might put the stock on the shelves, pick it, and do customer service. We have clients that visit their hub managers. You can never imagine like someone that's using an Amazon warehouse, a client going in and visiting their person in an Amazon warehouse. So it's a totally unique model, all powered by software and technology, versus like physical automation. Traditionally, people put in physical automation robots and they put humans in the gaps to do very repetitive jobs. But we built the whole tech and warehouses around the human, and that makes it highly efficient. So you know your brand, you know what you're picking, you know your packing, you know you care about it. It doesn't have to go through multiple layers of support to get from the client through to the warehouse. The connections are direct. So it's just totally reinvented it and just made it highly efficient. So we can, we're about 30% less cost than any other logistics company with great jobs, and a highly scalable model. We can launch a warehouse in a new in country be live within weeks, whereas in Amazon will take about 12 months. So we can scale very fast.
You've got the agility. So when you reflect on the success, and it's to Dan's point really, it's not a batting order, but you look at the different components of success of timing, technology, innovation, competitive set, luck, societal change, whatever. When you look at it and where you are now as a business, how do you reflect on the components that create that alchemy of success?
You say that again.
All right. What are the factors in your success?
Yeah, for the companies, like great people, great technology. We've got everyone there just wants to continue to grow and create amazing companies. It's the people, the technology, and because of the whole culture, our clients have joined up in that as well. They love it. They love this journey that we're going on. Yeah, great service levels.
Let's come on to another aspect of any successful business, certainly of scale, and that's the quality of advisors. Talk about the general point about why companies here, other entrepreneurs and so on, should be considering using advisors as part of their journey, and perhaps come into some of the specifics of the earliest advice you had, the type of advisors you have now.
Yeah, I mean, I think we talked about one of our advisors was our lawyer right away from the very first investment round. He's also helped lead our very latest in investment rounds, and all throughout he's been great in terms of actually doing the negotiation on the rounds for us, but also giving us advice. We still meet with him once a month. It's been invaluable, that whole journey.
And how do you want to name who that is and which company?
So that company was when the guy started off at TLT, and now he works for Eversheds. Right.
And how did he encounter you? You encounter, you said guys, I'm assuming it's a bloke. But anyway, how did that person encounter you?
Yeah,
when you got onto them?
So Martin actually used him to exit a business a couple of years before.
Right, right. So it's a longer term relationship.
Yeah.
So there's the legal advice through that person now at Eversheds. What about financial advice?
Yeah, so we had an accountant who took us up to a certain level, just beyond series, the first investment round, and then we actually hired in then more experienced CFO to have that into at least to know what we didn't know, because we didn't really know what we didn't.
Yeah, you
what
don't know what you
needed
don't know.
advice on.
Right.
So that was key to hire a really good internal CFO, and then knew even what questions to ask externally. And this is in our case, but
yeah. And so when you go through a funding round of 60 million, when you have a dream of floating and cracking the US, let alone taking down Amazon, you presumably do need very high quality advice. Talk through how you assess the quality of potential advisors. What process do you have there? It's not as regular or structured as your recruitment, but it's fundamental to the destiny of the business.
Yeah, I think that recommendations are really important. So just who they've worked with before, get some references, just meet with them. The most important thing with any sort of long-term relationship, with investors or with advisors that you intend to keep for years, is a relationship. You don't want to have to meet with someone regularly that you just don't like. It's just not enjoyable. So yeah, finding someone that you can.
I actually thought you were going to say something slightly different, which is you don't want to be meeting people and having to tell the story each time and bring them up to speed. But certainly, if you don't like them, then don't do it.
Yeah.
It's as basic as that. Any other advice for entrepreneurs here about advisors, how you've navigated from being that absolutely hands-on, I'm going to say whack-a-mole again, that absolutely hands-on my business person to taking in external advice, which many will either have or will need here?
Yeah, I just it's really difficult right at the start, because obviously finance is limited, but you'll find lots of people in networks like this, or even in law firms or accountancy, that are just willing to help, especially small companies that are just getting started. They're often for free or very, very sort of cut down rates, because they're investing in that, because they know as you get bigger, like Huboo does that, they can go up to market rates and then to make more money in the longer term.
And you mentioned, and I still don't quite know if you really meant it literally, about taking down Amazon, all the challenges. Presumably the other way round, you absolutely already are on Amazon's radar. Is there a scenario in which they would buy you?
I don't think so, no. I think our model's too unique for any sort of traditional company to buy. And that's why our sort of main plan is to exit on the stock exchange right now. That's not to say it's impossible.
Bezos is just a super bright individual. And the idea that if they can't innovate the way that you do, they can't disrupt their own business for fear of them having a legacy business. The logic is to buy in the disruptors, which you are.
Yeah. So it could happen, but yeah, we wouldn't sell for anything below.
Oh, yeah, it's
10 million right now.
Oh, you said 2 the other day. Some small number with lots of noughts, basically, and increasing the first number as well. Tell us about the potential dauntedness or even qualms about potentially entering the US market. I was hearing earlier you've got someone who's acting perhaps on behalf of US businesses wishing to get European e-commerce, and that's a sort of a step out in that direction. But to take a big investment round or to float in order to crack the States, are you daunted by that in any way?
Yeah, not daunted, but I think it's going to be quite difficult. It's not like one country, but it's like many states. Each one's got different laws. There's lots of tax implications. There's and even logistics is a giant country, so we can't just launch there with one warehouse. We're going to need like 4 or 5 warehouses, many staff to launch. So it's going to be that's why we need a lot of investment to get in there.
A lot of investment. Do you have a ballpark of what that might take?
Maybe about quarter of a billion or something. Yeah, around.
Just brush his head off. For a company that, remember, 5 years ago or so was in a garage in Bath selling chocolates or whatever, just fulfilling chocolate e-commerce, $250 million US. It'll come.
GBP.
With what?
GBP. Yeah.
GBP, of course. Yes, pounds. It's getting close to parity, isn't it? Tell us about what it is like for you as a duo. You've been through what in most other circumstances would be a sort of several decades worth of odyssey of growth and change. You packed it into 5, including COVID. How do you operate between you? How do you make decisions? How do you resolve any differences?
Yeah, I think you've been friends with Mark. It's similar to what I said about when you're looking for investors and looking for advisors. It's just really important to find like a business partner you actually like and get on with. Have and be totally honest with each other all the time, and make decisions like really fast, often the same wavelength. Very often sort of disagree for a minute. Have a big debate about something. Martin says this, I say that. Martin says that, and then we agree with what Martin says.
Yeah, that does make it easier, I'd imagine. But I mean, do you have? Are your roles so separate that, of course, you're making decisions jointly, but essentially you've got your day job, so you don't need to attempt to countermand or persuade the other. Yeah,
well, nowadays we've got everyone. We've got people in all the different C-suite jobs now, so it's more like a co-founder thing on where we want to take the business. Yeah, so it's each C-suite member does their own. So Thomas runs their own departments. So it's just cross-company stuff. We also drive forward.
I want to open up one other area, which is social responsibility. That increasingly, perhaps at a very slow rate, but increasingly, companies are getting more aware of their social responsibility. Talk to us about why it matters to you as a company. For example, Huboo was one of the first companies to publicly support Ukraine back in February, March this year, and we highlighted that at the Bristol Life Awards. But why does social responsibility matter for companies?
It's for the people, but also the clients. Like with so many clients now, especially even some of the bigger sort of multinationals that we're talking to now, it's just part of their requirement. But yeah, the Ukrainian thing, for example, we had loads of Ukrainians work for us, and all their friends. From the people's the main point, and then just people, and then profit.
It's a form of enlightened self-interest, but it's great to be able to do that.
Yeah.
And as you build scale, you've got an opportunity to have potentially a yet greater impact.
Yeah.
Okay.
It needs to be in that order: people, planet, profit.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Profit being, you didn't quite say this, but profit being a consequence of action as opposed to a driver, or is that overstating it?
I think they're all sort of equal. They all sort of go together.
Very deft.
Yeah.
Another daft question. Let's last round of questions. I've got a couple to end on. Otherwise, last round. Let's go with Steph.
Steph from Media Clash. Hi.
Hi.
A couple of questions just about going back to the very start again. Was it an idea that was forming for quite a long time that you're planning when you're at P&G, or was it like a light bulb moment? And what was the catalyst for you to just decide to go and do it? And what's behind the name?
And related, and which names did you reject? Anyway, so P&G, a light bulb moment, or
It was a series of light bulb moments. So it wasn't like one big sort of moment. It's very much an evolution thing over months and months. And even then, actually, the very first Huboo was going to be something quite different, and did the business plan for it, and it just wouldn't have made any money. So later on in that business plan was the fulfillment from these micro fulfillment centres, and that did make money. And all of that was just paperwork and spreadsheets. And so we pivoted. So the original Huboo business was trademarked for a different reason. It was going to be neighbourhood hubs that received parcels. And
delivery points.
Yeah, delivery points almost. And then later on they would have fulfilled. And then, as a delivery, say if you ship something like a pair of shoes, £100, the delivery point might make £1 out of that. But for fulfillment, you make about £20 out of that. So fulfillment was
one.
Fulfillment one.
It trumped. Yeah.
So at some point we get to delivery points.
Well, you're further up the value chain, and you maybe that's integrated. And to the question about Huboo as a name, was that your name? Was that your choice?
It was just like one of those sort of brainstorm things, what's available and what's short. it was. I think I bought. I bought it from this company based in Devon or something that had it for a different reason, and the trademark was available. So yeah, I think I bought it for about £500 from some company.
Is it like Hub was the original? You said Hub a few times. Is that like?
Yeah. So hubs are these micro fulfillment centres, and it was like multiple hubs. Yeah. So it's like Huboo. Everyone pronounced it wrong, especially in different countries.
I was going to say, does it have some unintendedly rude meaning in a different language?
Not yet.
You're yet to discover.
Not yet.
Yeah, there's a Japanese lemonade called Piss. I mean, really? PIS, not double. On that half note, Richard.
Richard Spills, really interesting for answering. I wondered, do you think the business is different because it started in the Southwest? And if so, why?
This, by the way, is what's known as the Dale Vince question. I asked him this at the first EntreConf, and I thought he would say, I'm giving you a bit of space to think of this one. I said, give you a bit of, the dynamism of the Southwest, the separateness, the differentness, and so on. In his case, an eco-warrior. Dead up to, he said, no, not at all. So, are you a no, not at all? What part, if any, did the Southwest play in Huboo's early, current success as well?
Yeah, so, like I said, the company's built on people, and a lot of the people, all the people that were like really great. Yeah, not at all. No.
Rich, I think we'll alternate that question. We'll eventually find someone who says, "Yeah, the Southwest is magical. It's mystical. It has a strange."
Actually, read this thing about it was in Bristol about being quite a rebellious city, and we're a rebellious company, and on social media we call our staff hooligans. We're trying to we are going to try and take down Amazon and sort of transform, create a revolution across the world, and Bristol's the right space to start.
So you're actually saying it's really central to the brand? No, you're not. Okay. Please.
Once you've taken down Amazon,
then what?
Your opinion, will you be building a rocket?
Yeah, so again, myself and Martin Jacob, say he probably wants to retire at that point, and I want to do a space company. It's a bit cliched. Maybe not build rockets.
What shape of the rocket?
It would have a very pointy top.
Well, you'd need some rocket makers and advice for that, but okay. Let's.
Are they rocket makers or rocket masters? No one knows.
They're rocket makers, but it's a meta. Yeah, right, okay. Whack-a-mole. Back to that. Yeah. Last couple of questions. Yeah. Nathan.
Everyone always says you learn more from your mistakes than your successes. Were there any big mistakes or problems you overcame that stand out?
Yeah, loads. Yeah. I don't know if any stand out, but every day there's mistakes. The key things like just don't run with it. Don't think because you've invested so much in this wrong idea that you need to keep with it. It's you just need to go with the flow and not just be humble enough to change direction, say that you're wrong. And I can't think of any specifics. Just that it just happens all the time.
And it's perhaps too closely related question to Nathan's, but are there any sort of final piece of key advice for entrepreneurs here tonight, given your experience?
I think it's just to sort of courage to go for it and to try just to take those first steps and to not plan it for. Every plan always changes anyway, so don't get too caught up in planning. Just getting stuff done.
Yeah. Just a final question, which is a personal one. You've had this incredibly accelerated odyssey, this warp speed growth. Do you get enough time to reflect and pause, and thereby almost enjoy what has been created?
Yeah, it's about 90 minutes after every investment rounds. Myself and Martin go to the local sort of bar.
Right.
We crack open a bottle of champagne right away from the first one, and we just sort of reflect for about 90 minutes, and then we get back on it.
90 minutes. So that's 90 minutes, 5 times, a bottle of champagne each time. That's pretty abstemious in the grand scheme of things when you've raised 100 million quid along the way of developing a business worth 300 on its course to be a £1 billion business, which is going to take down Amazon. What an extraordinary story. It's been an incredible privilege to experience this and to hear this tonight. On your behalf, I'd like to thank Paul from Huboo for this remarkable story and his great candour. Paul, thank you very much.